All right, so I just wanted to quickly show you how to compress your images. So on your websites, you actually have a tool that lets you know the size of the images. So we're going to go to the media section, and then you'll see here that it shows the size of the images, and you actually have the compression tool called Smush already on your website. So it does compress the images quite a bit, but some of them are still pretty big. So I'm going to show you, for example, for instance, this one originally was 1.1 megabytes, which is really big. It did compress it to 75%. So you did save a bit of space, and it is 574 kilobytes now. That's still pretty big though. So I'd even want it to be smaller than that. But like, look at this one. This one's 2.42 megabytes. That's massive. And it was originally 4.1. So I'm going to show you how to actually compress this. So the image, you would just download the file, or you could open it up, like view it and do it that way. So you'll see this is the image, and if we expand it, it's really big. I'm not sure if it needs to be that big on the site. But I mean, if it does need to be, a full screen, then I understand. Then you can just use the tool to compress it if it's the size that you need it to be. But if you don't actually need it to be this size, then I would also recommend resizing the image. So I've downloaded this picture onto my computer, and I'm going to show you what I would do to compress it. So these are the two tools that I use. So this one's tinypng.com, and it will just compress the size of the image. It will not change the dimensions of the photo or resize it at all. It just compresses it. And then this one is the image resizer. So depending on the situation, I may just use this one if the size of the image I actually need. So let's say, for instance, I need it to be 1,000 pixels by whatever, and I don't want to resize it in that way, I will just drop the photo in here to compress it. So here's the photo here. You'll see that it is 2.42 megabytes. Now, if I plug that in here and resize it, it compressed it about 60 or 76%. So you'll see it's down to 604 kilobytes, which is still really big. But I mean, it's a lot better than about 3 megabytes, right? So you would just click on it, and it will download the resized or the compressed photo to your computer, and you can re-upload it to the site. Now for the image resizer, like let's say we do not need that photo to be that big. So again, this is the original image, and you'll see that it's pretty big. The dimensions are 2,160 pixels by 1080. If it doesn't need to be that big, once we plug it in here, we can simply just change the highest dimension. So I always go for the highest one. So if the height is the highest one, I'll change that. Or if the width is the highest one, I'll change that. And you always want to make sure that the aspect ratio is locked because you don't want to distort the image in any way. But if this doesn't need to be that big, I would literally just put it to like 1,000 or 800. So if you do need it to be pretty big, like you want it to fill the screen, for instance, then you want like 1920 by 1080p. So let's say, for instance, you needed this to fill the entire screen of the website, then you would want to go with 1920. But if that's not necessary and it's just a picture that's going to be on a blog or somewhere on the site and it isn't acting as a banner that needs to take up the full screen, then you could make it less than that. So I'll show you both ways. So 1920 by 960, and then I'll resize that, and you'll see it brought it down to 544 kilobytes, which is better. It's not great, but it's better. And then I would download that image, and like you see how it's still really big. I would see if I can press it a bit more by putting it into tiny PNG if I do actually need that size. So I think it's this one right here that I just downloaded. So I'm going to download that one, and I was able to get it down to 466. I mean, not a big difference, but every kilobyte counts, right? So that's what I would do if I do need it to be a full screen image. I would still compress it as much as I possibly can and resize it as much as I possibly can. Now, let's say it doesn't matter and you don't actually need it to be full screen. I would go for like 800 or 1,000 maximum, but 800 is usually fine. So if I just do resize image to 800, it'll be 800 by 400. And then if I resize that image, you'll see I've gotten it down to 115 or 116 kilobytes basically, which is perfect. So that is what I would do in order to make sure I'm optimizing all the images. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and that's it.